side. Let's ride, let's ride, let's ride. Let's keep the game proper on the other side.
Welcome to the fourth episode of the AIDS LifeCycle 10 podcast. My name is Lisa Hachadorian, and I am a cyclist representative for AIDS LifeCycle. This episode is called The Roadie Show and is all about the fiercest volunteers on the face of this planet, the AIDS LifeCycle Roadies. These individuals typically give up 8 days of vacation to do hard physical labor for 1 week, for free. They will serve the cyclists graciously in whatever job they are given, and with smiles on their faces, and then they'll come back the next year, and the next, and do it all over again. In this podcast, we will meet people who dedicate themselves to AIDS LifeCycle in this way. First, Don Napoli will tell us what it's like to be in the sweep vehicle. Then later he'll describe what it was like when he himself got swept. We'll hear from Kim Lembo, who is the Roadie and Logistics Coordinator for AIDS LifeCycle. Who better to tell roadie stories than the top gun of the roadies herself? She'll share a story about a day when Murphy's Law rained down upon us, but the AIDS LifeCycle roadies still came through. All that coming up in just a few beats. Don Napoli is a multi-year roadie who has also ridden AIDS LifeCycle twice. Here he describes to us why being in the sweep vehicle is his favorite job.
What do you do as a roadie?
I do sweeps, which I love sweeps. During the event, there's about 20 to 22 vehicles that ride with the cyclists, and we do donuts up and down the route with the cyclist and pick up anybody that falls behind on rest stops. You have rest stops every 15, 20 miles, and if somebody breaks down in between those rest stops, whether it be mental, physical, or equipment, we pick them up and sweep them to the next rest stop. If it's equipment, then there's bike tech at every single rest stop. They can get their bicycle fixed. If it's mental or physical, they can either take a break and get back on the bike, or just get on an air-conditioned bus and go into camp until the next day's ride.
So how long have you been doing sweep?
This will be my 4th time, I think, doing sweeps.
Wow.
I love sweeps.
Why do you love sweep?
You get to sit there, even though you're in a vehicle for 12, 13 hours a day, picking up the cyclists and listening to the stories and what brought them to AIDS LifeCycle really means a lot to me, that interaction with the cyclists. Plus the fact that most people don't want to be picked up by sweeps and they're in a really bad mood when they're picked up. And being that I have been involved with ALC for so many years and I've also ridden, I can sympathize with them and I can talk to them and show them the bigger picture of what they're doing here on the ride. And that it's not about doing every single mile, but, doing the fundraising and saving lives, and the ride is supposed to be your reward. And you do have people that do want to do every single mile, and I totally understand that, but some things happen sometimes and you don't. But what I also tell them is you are doing every mile, it's just right now you've got 4 wheels underneath your butt, not 2.
Nice.
So technically you are doing every mile, but...
That's a great attitude, and it's true. The reason why we're here is to save lives, and it's great that you bring that to them on the bus. And when I say on the bus, I mean on the SAG bus. Are you ever on the SAG bus?
When I rode, yes. I did have to sag, yes I did.
We'll continue with Don's story right after the news. We at AIDS LifeCycle are excited to announce our Day on the Ride training ride events. And I say events because there are 2 of them. One in Southern California and one in Northern California. Both will take place on Saturday, April 23rd. What is Day on the Ride? Well, Day on the Ride is designed to be just like an average day on AIDS LifeCycle 10, and this includes a route that is very well marked, fully supported rest stops complete with food and water and electrolyte drinks by Powerade. We'll also have our crew of bike technicians stationed at the rest stops and at lunch should you need them. Our renowned motorcycle crew will make sure that you take the important turns safely. We will have sweep vehicles traveling the route all day long. And of course, our famous and fabulous roadies who will ensure that you are well taken care of at each and every mile. Tickets for the Southern California Day on the Ride are just $10 and include all that you just heard, plus a boxed lunch of turkey or veggie sandwich. Tickets for Northern California are $20 and also include a boxed lunch, plus all-you-can-eat pasta feed at the end, plus a massage team will be at Mike's Bikes in the afternoon at the end of your ride. Wow, you lucky NorCals. But either Southern or Northern Cali, spend a day with the most amazing community of cyclists around. For more information and to buy tickets for these events, go to www.aidslifecycle.org and click on Full Calendar, then look up Saturday, April 23rd for Day on the Ride. Or there's a secret shortcut. Northern California, go to tinyurl.com/DOTR-NorCal. And SoCal, wait for it, www.tinyurl.com/DOTR-SoCal. Either way, please make sure you log in before you buy the tickets. Word to the wise. Just trust me. Always RSVP this way. And now back to Don's Sweet Sweep Stories.
So you were one of those people in that year that had to be pulled by sweep?
Okay, so I roadied, like I said, 3 or 4 years before I decided to ride. I know the spiel. I know it's not about every single mile. It's not about that. But when you get your butt on that bike, you have a mentality of wanting to do every single mile. And I pushed myself out of rest stop 4 one day before I should have stretched a little bit more and relaxed. There's no hurry to get to camp. I mean, if you get there, there's nothing going on until everybody else gets there. But I pushed myself out and I went to go up a hill, and as I pushed my foot down, pain went up and I pulled a groin muscle. And the next morning I had to go into sports med and have it looked at, and they medically pulled me for the day. I sat in the back of sports med crying like a little baby and then laughing at myself on why I was crying. It made no sense because mentally I knew it's not about doing every single mile, and that by staying one day out, I can get back on my bike and ride the rest of the ride, rather than getting back out on the bike and hurting myself and not being able to do any more days on the ride. But it was really interesting quandrum of sitting in the back with these tears coming out of my eyes on I want to do every mile, and then laughing at myself knowing it's all for the better and it's not about doing every mile.
And you've probably made that speech to somebody else and saying to yourself, okay, I got to give myself this speech now.
I have told that story to many a crying cyclist in the back seat of my sweep vehicle.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And that's probably saved them, right?
It does, because when you try to tell a cyclist, I understand what you're feeling, most of the time as a roadie, the first thing you hear is, no, you don't. And the fact that I have ridden this ride twice and been involved for 9 years and have probably felt every single emotion possible on this event, there's nothing they can say or come back to me that I don't have a story for.
Yeah.
And that gives me a unique ability to relax them. Plus, we give away some really good stuff in the sweep vehicles.
I
So,
didn't know that.
oh yeah.
Is that a secret? Because I never knew that.
I didn't think it was a secret, but yeah, most of the people that have done sweep vehicles for a while will get special gifts to give away inside the vehicle. I personally usually spend around $400 on giveaway stuff that are specific to the ride and the year. One year I bought these little key flashlights and had engraved on their AIDS LifeCycle, whatever year it was, and the dates, and Woody loves you, because my sweet vehicle is the Woody van. And the next one of the years I swept, I had these collapsible Frisbees made up, and that had the AIDS LifeCycle logo and the dates and everything else. So in camp, people can have fun and throw the Frisbees around.
I remember seeing those.
Right. And this year I'm having the 10th anniversary.
I know something you don't know. I know something you don't know. I know something you don't know.
And I'm gonna order, I think, about 300, and they're like $1.25 a piece.
That's incredible.
But it helps me feel better about it, and it helps me make the riders feel better.
Yeah, because it's really a badge of honor.
Right.
Yeah.
I one year there was these two girls that I picked up, and they started laughing when they got in my vehicle, and I was like, "You're in a really good mood. What are you laughing about?" And they said that they purposely waved on 3 other sweep vehicles because they heard I had some good stuff in mine. And so they waved everybody else on until my vehicle came around so they can get some good stuff.
And did you give them the good stuff?
Of course.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Are there any other people that you run into as far as being a roadie that have, is a hard person to talk through?
Yes, you do run into some people that there absolutely is nothing you can do to talk them out of it or stop them from being upset. But over the years, that's changed. Back in around ALC 3, 4, 5, I used to get a lot of people in the sweep vehicle that were very upset, and there was really nothing you can do to make them feel better. ALC 8, that seems to have started changing to where a lot of the people that I picked up, it was more on the other end of, well, it is right, it's not about every mile, we're here raising money. And the mentality seems to have switched. And I contribute that a lot to the cycle representatives. To be able to sit there and tell the cyclists these stories, and it's not about every mile. And, poop happens. Sometimes something happens and you just can't do every single mile. If it's a breakdown of your equipment, then when you lose 10 miles, then when you get to camp, run outside and do 10 miles real quick if you feel that you have to do every single mile that day. You can make up for it if you absolutely have to, but other than that, just relax and enjoy the ride.
Thank you, Don. And if you want to find out what he has in store for our 10th anniversary, you'll just have to ride in AIDS LifeCycle and then get sagged by Don. Remember to look for his Woody. And now a new segment called the Roadie Corner, in which we'll explore the different AIDS LifeCycle roadie jobs from several different points of view. First, here's a story from Kim Lembo. Now, I've often said that AIDS LifeCycle comes down the coast and the riders are all riding in concert with one another. Well, if the roadies are working all in concert with one another, Kim Lembo is the conductor, and a great conductor she is indeed. Here she is describing Day 6 of AIDS LifeCycle 8, in which the skies opened up and flooded the highway so badly that California Highway Patrol, yes, CHIPS, had to close down the highway. In this section of the highway, though, it was also the bike route for AIDS LifeCycle. Here's Kim to describe that day.
I believe ALC 8, this is ALC 8, yeah, was one of our largest events also. So, at capacity, we're 2,500 cyclists. We're, upwards of 600 roadies that all get from point A to point B in the system. Mostly cyclists are going to be on their bikes. That's how they're going to get themselves from Lompoc to Ventura, right? Now, when CHP closes down the route due to a storm, and 2,500 people that are supposed to get from Lompoc to Ventura on their bikes can't get there on their bikes. So there's some creative organizing to get these people from point A to point B. And I'll tell you, to have been like in that, to wake up that morning and realize like where I was sleeping, there was water, and I'm like, okay, what is going on? You get a very sense that something is not right because your gear's all wet, and you step, and everybody's gear's all wet. So to be in on those meetings with the roadie deputies and the logistics directors, to sort of have been a fly on the wall, watching this all evolve was just amazing. I mean, they had, we're talking maybe 6 people that have collectively, probably 50 years worth of events under their belts. So it was an immediate, okay, we're closing the route. Okay, we're closing. I mean, that wasn't an immediate conversation, but the conversation was, looks like we may have to close the route because CHP has closed it down, and we don't think it's going to be open until after a time that would not be safe to get people out of camp at that time and into the next camp before sundown, right? Because you're also working with how long is the sun in the sky. So there's all these really crazy factors that everybody in on the conversation had input to, and to watch these volunteers in concert again with the logistics directors, and the emergency plan, like to.
So there was actually an emergency plan in place.
Of course, there was a plan. Did the plan say we would set up a triage lunch in the back of Lompoc, and that's where we would redirect lunches to be delivered there, and the food service team that usually does breakfast and dinner would then do lunch? No, not in the plan. We think that, the gear and tent trucks were going to transport bikes, meaning they had to do 4 round trips from Lompoc to Ventura and back again, all volunteers. Like, this was the whole volunteer gear and tent team. They worked a 14-hour day transporting bikes. No, that wasn't in, no, of course these things weren't in the plan. Because the contingency plans, of course, were about, if there's an earthquake or a fire or whatever. Not what if the road washes out and CHP closes you down, and, now that's in the contingency plan. But, it was so amazing to watch this ballet of, oh my God, it was so amazing, Lisa. If you can imagine, like 500 or 600 cyclists had already gone to rest step 1. It was, at that point, it just got like crazy pouring down rain. I mean, there were people in Mylar blankets, and one of the jokes going around was that they all looked like a bunch of stuffed potato, like baked potatoes, in their little Mylar blankets, and you had the rest step 1 captains dealing with with sweep teams, and again, the logistics directors and ride staff and other volunteers that were involved, in addition to all of these cyclists who were then plugged into Facebook, Twitter, all of this other stuff. So there was also a lot of information flying around that couldn't be contained at all, because nothing, I mean, we're not in a time anymore where that can be contained. Those 600 cyclists had to come back to camp. So they had already ridden their 15 miles, had to ride their 15 miles back to Lompoc, and then get onto buses. But just watch all the amazing volunteers and cyclists were, 99.9% of that day was a testament of this ride community and how beautiful this community is. It doesn't matter what your role is, whether you're a roadie or a cyclist or a staff member or a vendor, it didn't matter. Like, everybody came together as one community and made this happen. 3,000 people got from point A to point B with little or no interruption of fun, community, and relative good mood, given what was happening. I would like to share with you one of our Gear Intent roadies, who's just a very, very sweet guy. And he also has a podcast out in Vermont. And he was saying to me that one of the things that really deeply struck him on this day was a really amazing sight to have all of these gear trucks filled with bikes with no cyclists on them. That to him, it wasn't lost on him, the imagery of all of the people who, that we've lost in the 30 years of the AIDS epidemic, all of the people that weren't on bikes because they're no longer with us. And he really put that together in his own, it just struck him very deeply. And when he shared that with me, it really struck me as well. Like, here we are, this community of people that go out and, I don't know, kind of find the joyful pieces of, if there could be a joyful end to this ridiculous disease, it's that we have found a way to work together, to fight together, but to do it in this really loving, communal way.
I'd like to thank both Kim Lembo and Don Napoli for being a part of the Roadie Show, both here and on AIDS LifeCycle. I'd like to give a shout out to some new subscribers in Germany, Switzerland, Canada, and Kuwait, as well as all across the US. Please remember to subscribe, review, and rate the podcast. The next podcast should be up in about 2 weeks, but if it is not, please forgive me. As the ride gets closer, I must pay closer attention to the needs of my own darling cyclists, as I am a cyclist representative. So until the next time, peace out.